Welcome to Unpacked with Liat. Today, I'm sitting with Tamar Berkowitz, someone who I met through our children. They were in the same school when you guys were living in LA. And I've been quietly watching you in your healing era and in your journey. And now you are a trauma-informed somatic practitioner and energy healer. I've seen you lead cacao ceremonies. I've seen you open up your page, Manifest Health Official, and just watching kind of you unfold into all of that and weaving Torah and faith into that as well. And then your latest project, the Kabbalah Moon Journal. So I wanted to sit down with you today and pick your brain and kind of see what it's all about. Give us like a little bit into the of who Tamar Berkowitz is of Manifest Health. And I'm just so excited for what we're going to unpack in this conversation.
I'm so excited too, and thank you so much for having me. It's like I said, it's trippy to be out in the world again postpartum and talking, and I'm like so far removed from teaching and podcasts and all the thing, and it's just I'm happy to be here, and it's so exciting to do this with you. It feels so comfy, you know.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you. I'm so excited. I know when you were living in LA, I remember one Shabbos you guys came to us, and I think I was like freaking out because it was like before like being gluten free was like a thing, and you're just like, no, I don't eat this, and I'm like, okay, but like you could have a little bite, right? And you're like, no, I can't. I was looking at him like she's gonna starve today, like she's going to go hungry, and you were just like, no, I'm just so used to it. And I remember like you would say you would get so sick from eating gluten, and like even the smallest little bite of something would make you feel, I think you said like it was like painful and you'd be bedridden, right? Or you'd get migraines.
There's a lot of different things that would happen. Um,
Okay.
Yeah, but I rem first of all, I did not go hungry that Shabbos. I to this day remember and dream of the food. It was so good. I was stuffed. I ate like a million tacos. Anyways, but yeah, so I had a lot of different symptoms. I had eczema. I had stomach problems, like literally if you just Google like gluten intolerance, I had every symptom in the book. But the worst thing that was really difficult was it also came with mental symptoms, which is actually a common side effect of gluten intolerance. And I would experience, at the time, I would experience sometimes symptoms of like full-blown bipolar disorder. So if I would accidentally get, gluten poisoned or whatever, it would be like going into those, it's hard to explain, but I was very like extremely reactive. I had no control over my emotions. I was like an angry, really crazy blowouts. It was really, really, really difficult. And the migraines really came later. I mean, I was suffering from migraines at that time. That is when they started to become a little bit more chronic. Let me start from the beginning. So, before knowing anything about like health or healing, I figured out that I was gluten intolerant when I was 21. And at the time, that's when I had I had a wide range of symptoms, but the most torturous ones were those mental ones, as I mentioned. I had symptoms that looked like bipolar disorder. And so when I came across the possibility that gluten could be the root cause, like experimented going gluten free. And so back then, within like literally 2 days, my life completely changed. And the mental symptoms totally lifted, never looked back. I stayed gluten free for the next 11 years until my gut eventually healed to the point where I no longer needed to be. So, years later, when I was 29 and I had 3 kids, my health began to decline in a different way. So, that's when I started developing like a growing list of debilitating symptoms that eventually turned into full blown autoimmune issues, chronic pain. Um, Endometriosis, chronic vestibular migraines, chronic pain in my back, neck, shoulders, my jaw, my face, vertigo, vomiting, inflammation. Like it was crazy. My body could not move the way that it used to. And so I knew that I needed to heal my gut more deeply. And I kept putting it off until one day I had the worst flare up of my life when everything flared up at once, like all the different things. And so I had like the most most severe eczema outbreak I ever experienced also at that time. And I couldn't use my hands for 2 weeks.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
that was like the breaking point. And so, yeah, I remember being on the floor, like literally on my knees, my hands pinned under my legs to stop myself from scratching. And that was like my moment where I like bowed to God, literally, because I was like in that position and I just spoke to him and I was like, Hashem, you are my healer. I will do everything. I will learn what I need to learn. I'll change every part of my life and I'll do the work, but you have to heal me. And so from there is when I like fully immersed into the actual like holistic healing and
Hmm.
changed my whole lifestyle beyond just being gluten free.
So at that point, you had already cut out gluten
Yeah.
and you thought, like, okay, I fixed it. But then somehow, years later, more flare ups were coming. Then at that point, you understood, like, I've removed gluten, I've solved that issue, but there's something else going on. But how did you
Right.
understand that? Because most people would go to Western medicine,
Right.
and they would think like something, God forbid, like horrible is happening to them.
Yeah. So I did first go to Western medicine, but they didn't have anything for me. So first of all, my body has never responded to medications ever. Like when migraines started, I got medication for the migraines. They didn't work. Like, and thank
Hmm.
God, because they're actually really dangerous. And
Right.
when they prescribe you, they only give you like 10 like 7 to 10 pills or something at a time because they're so toxic. It's like crazy. So nothing worked for me, and at that point I just kept developing more things that, and I remember the when the change really happened was when I went to an OBGYN when I got diagnosed with endometriosis, and they were like, so you can be on birth control for the rest of your life, and which I was already a no, because at that point I went off of birth control to try and regulate my cycle because I bled for 4 months straight. And so I was like, maybe I need to go off to just like get my system like running normally again. And when I went off of birth control that time, I had crazy withdrawal symptoms, like as if I was on drugs for days. And I was like, whoa, that's obviously toxic. And there's no way I'm going to take those pills ever again.
Right.
And so, but he was like, you could take medication, take birth control for the rest of your life so you won't feel the pain, but you're also just going to need regular, like routine surgeries here and there over the years. Whenever growths develop, we're going to need to remove them. You could also get your uterus removed, which isn't even a solution because it grows outside of the uterus, but people do it. And I'm like, what is this insanity? What are you talking about?
Right.
It's like people do this, like, and I was like, okay, there has to be another way. I'm not doing any of this. And I had already known a little bit like a little bit about the holistic healing world
Hmm.
and that people have healed crazy chronic situations, including like fatal diseases and cancer, and had these miraculous healing situations. I watched this documentary called Heal, which is an amazing documentary. And I learned different things here and there that I knew was possible. So I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going that route. I'm going to figure it out and I'll change everything. So I started doing my research and I just started living a totally non-toxic lifestyle. I replaced every single beauty product and shampoo and cleaning product in my home. I learned about how inflammation is like the, source of all of the symptoms, that you have to clear the inflammation. My whole body was inflamed. So I started eating anti-inflammatory foods. I changed the way I cooked to the way I ate. I threw out all the processed foods in my house. I started making everything from scratch. I cut out dairy and corn and legumes and nightshades. And I learned to use food as medicine, learned the different healing benefits of all the different
Hmm.
fruits and vegetables and meat and everything. And I figured out how to create meals that are actually going to heal my body. And I worked with supplements. I worked with medicinal herbs and homeopathy. There was a point where I was actually taking like up to 30 supplements a day. But that's because that's what was required when you're healing a very sick body. That's not like a normal thing, but that's
Right.
the way that you can heal. And I stretched daily. I walked daily. I slowly started to mobilize my body again because it was stuck and tense and stiff from all the chronic pain. So after about like 6 to 8 months, something like that, and living that lifestyle, everything went into remission. Everything. My pain was gone. The migraines were pretty much gone. When I would get them, it was very rare. It wouldn't take me out. Like they were very
Hmm.
compared to before. The autoimmune symptoms disappeared and I had more energy than I had ever had in my life, including from when I was like a little kid. But I also realized that I was healed, but I wasn't free because I was a prisoner to the lifestyle. Like
Right.
if I ate the wrong thing, I could trigger a flare up. If I didn't sleep enough, I could trigger a flare up. So if I didn't manage everything totally perfectly, my body could totally collapse again. So,
Which is overwhelming
right, yeah. Um,
because you have life and kids and a husband, and like sometimes they're in school, out of school. Like it's not an exact schedule. The kids can wake you up in
yeah,
the middle of the night, and then all of a sudden, like you're up for 3 hours and you couldn't fall back asleep, and so that's really
exactly.
overwhelming.
Exactly. It was scary. I was living in a state of fear of like if things go wrong or exactly that. If I was woken up in the middle of the night and then I'm like all day, I'm like, oh no, I didn't get enough sleep. And then it's like you kind of like bring it on because your body's
Yeah.
expecting it. And yeah, so I was living in like a state of chronic fear of just like, the wrong thing happening or when things wouldn't go perfectly, of what's going to happen, when's the next migraine going to come. And so around that time is when I started learning about emotional root cause healing, which is the understanding that every symptom and every disease has an emotional origin, right? So, a lot of people, thank God it's much more widely understood nowadays and it's getting there, but a lot of people really just dismiss that as like that's like psychosomatic BS. But there's actually very clear science now, thank God, explaining exactly how stress and unresolved emotions impact our bodies and our nervous systems and the immune system, and how over time, eventually these emotions will manifest into a specific disease, depending on what the emotion is, where it gets stored in the body. I started to become aware of the traumas in my life that I had never healed. And I came to understand that I lived with complex PTSD my entire life, really, since I was 4 years old. And over time, it slowly manifested into all of these physical symptoms. And every symptom I was living with was literally textbook. Like the trauma that I had causes these symptoms at around these different ages. It's exactly what I experienced.
Wow.
So at 31 years old, I finally reached the point where I was ready to face what I spent my entire life avoiding. And, I thought I could leave those experiences in the past, but as they say, the body keeps the score.
It really does.
Yeah, and my body was no longer allowing me to suppress or outrun what needed to be resolved. Like that's what all the diseases were, was all my
Yeah.
pain and trauma coming to the surface.
And this was after you had kids, right? It didn't start before you had kids.
Correct. I had symptoms my whole life, but everything became chronic after having kids.
Right. Because I think it's that mirror and seeing the child, and then you trying to heal your inner child and heal that trauma. And then it just gets exacerbated and brought out even more,
Right. It's
you
like
know?
even when you're not trying, it's really interesting if when you're aware of your different traumas, you'll notice every time your kid is at the age where you experience certain traumas without even realizing it, you're just triggered all the time by the by your own kids.
Yeah.
And it's just that because your inner child is seeing them being, thank God, like healthy kids, and your inner
Yeah.
child is like, hello, I've been sitting here, come raise me, heal me, take care of me. Like
Right.
inner child is triggered by you taking care of this other kid, and they're like, you never gave me the healing that I need, and I'm still sitting here.
Right. No, it's really insane. And I think that like you said, like thank God there's the science out there today. It's not like this like kooky, whatever. It's becoming more of the standard, more of the norm. And I think that it's important to understand like, yes, the mind body connection, but the emotional connection within the body and how that represents. And so the fact that you're able to learn that for yourself and work on that, I'm sure it wasn't easy. And I'm sure it took a lot of breaking points and a lot of hardship, and even financially to switch over your whole house is not a cheap thing to do, especially when you're already set up and you're setting up a kosher home, not,
Yeah.
but you were at that point, like you said, going back to what you said earlier, like at that point in desperation on your hands and knees and saying like, I will do the work, Hashem. You need to heal me. Like you're at that point of desperation that you're like, I will literally try anything at this point. Like I cannot continue to live this way.
Yeah. And I want to speak to that financial aspect because I know there are so many people that think that they can't do these things because they don't have the money. And let me tell you, we've struggled financially forever, pretty much. And so I didn't do it all at once because it wasn't possible. I did
Right.
it piece by piece. And instead of falling into like fear and despair of I can't, I trusted Hashem that he put me in this situation that I can't do it all at once and that I'm going to be okay. Like I
Yeah.
trusted that Hashem, you want me to be here and it's still going to work, even though I can't do it all perfectly right now. I still haven't replaced everything I want to replace. I haven't replaced my pots and pans yet. I'm dying to do that. I'll get to it when Hashem lets me, you know? I
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah. No, it's
I'll take
amazing.
I'll take the little bits of aluminum poisoning for now, and all my body will detox it
Yes,
with my
exactly. So, as you were healing physically, what kind of things did you notice in your body, like the emotions, spirituality, like within that process, how you notice those things? Like you're obviously in that process, you're hyper aware, you're waiting for that thing to happen, right?
So yeah, so it was partly first of all when like it's interesting when you're in the process or when I was in the process of healing just the physical part at first, I didn't really notice the slow progression. It was more like, oh my God, like I feel great suddenly, you know? And like I haven't had these symptoms in like a while now. And oh, I've been having energy for a while. I think that's also just due to the fact of like being a busy mom and like you're so preoccupied and overwhelmed constantly with the daily stuff. Like it's so easy for us to just like dissociate from like what's going on with our bodies. So there was like a lot of that, like suddenly it just like hitting me like, oh, it's been like a month straight that I haven't had a flare up or 2 months now. And you know,
Hmm.
like I was seeing that. But then when it came to like the more like emotional changes and becoming aware of these patterns and things, it was partly what I was studying, but even more than that, it was also what I was experiencing in my body as I was healing, right? Like through the embodied work. I could actually like start to feel where the trauma had been stored, how it lived in different parts of my body, and how it was physically and emotionally manifesting in my
Hmm.
life. And then there's the spiritual piece also, right? Which honestly is the most powerful part. Like we're spiritual beings living in physical bodies. I've also always been deeply spiritual, so I'm always very attuned to this part of it. So we're spiritual beings living in these physical bodies. Our souls are placed into these vessels, right? Our body's the vessel, and we are meant to be channels for God. And especially as Jews, like who we are today is very far removed from what we actually are. We are a nation of prophets. But in exile, we've become so disconnected from that capacity. And the reason most of us don't experience ourselves as clear channels isn't because we lack spiritual ability. It's because we are so disconnected from our bodies. And
Hmm.
also because the traumas we've experienced, right? Any unprocessed emotions or heartbreaks or survival patterns, they create energetic blockages and leaks in our system.
Yeah.
And so those blockages interfere with our ability to receive and sense and channel Hashem clearly. So as I was healing, I was continuously clearing these blocks. Like that's what's happening in the energetic spiritual side of things
Right.
when you're healing. So as that happened, I began to recognize and understand gifts that I actually had my entire life. Like I realized I had the natural ability to feel and read energy. Growing up, I didn't understand what I was experiencing when I would sense these things. It scared the crap out of me as a kid, so I would suppress it as much as possible. My only reference back then was horror movies, and I thought there's like ghosts and bad things, and it freaked me out. And I'm like, nope, nope. But during my healing journey, I began working with other healers and mentors who helped me make sense of what I was experiencing. And they helped me understand what my gifts actually were, how they work, and how to relate to them in a grounded and healthy way. And so at the same time, I was learning more and more about trauma, right? As I said, specifically like how trauma is stored in the body. And that's when it became really clear to me that if trauma lives in the body, It can only be healed through the body. And so that realization is what ended up leading me to somatic work. And so when I eventually joined my somatic healing facilitator training with my mentor, Dr. Summer Nicole, I learned her method, which is called the somatic reparenting method. And as part of that training, we also studied Reiki, which is a form of energy healing, which, by the way, is halakhically totally kosher for anyone who's wondering, because it's always a question that comes up.
I would have never thought to, why do people ask that?
Well, I also actually, when I started learning it, I thought it was totally not okay. And I was like, uh-oh. But I found out that it is. The reason why I thought it wouldn't be is because when they teach it, there's these symbols that they use, which is actually just Japanese letters. And you don't even need to use the symbols if you're energetically in tune. It's just to help you. The symbols are there just to help you concentrate. But so that's what I thought. And I was like freaked out by it. Through my own continued healing using this method, everything really came online for me. My ability to facilitate healing, to hold space, and to serve as a clear channel for Hashem's healing became like really integrated and embodied, and in like a really grounded and safe and like aligned way. And so that's how all these different pieces ended up coming together, of like the somatics, the trauma, nervous system, spirit, energy, all of it in like one unified path.
That's beautiful. I think going back to what you said also is when you're saying like all of a sudden, like a month later, you're like, oh wow, I haven't had a flare up. I think that also when your mind is so focus, like there's the physical, so to speak, and then there's like the spiritual, and there's also like the mindset of it. So when your mind is so focused on like, I have no choice but to be better, you're looking for the healing. You're looking for those moments for you to like, oh wow, a month later, I didn't have a flare up, or I feel clearer, or I feel like, I can function a little bit better, or this time is usually my trigger time and I didn't lose my shit today at that time. And so I think that the mindset also probably comes into that as well, with the physical things that you're doing to prevent the flare-ups.
For sure.
Yeah. So take us to somatics. For somebody who doesn't know what somatics is, just kind of like give a brief understanding of what is somatics, what container do you hold for people within the somatics, what does it look like, and what does it actually feel like for somebody to do somatic work?
Okay, so first of all, somatic comes from the Greek word soma, which means body. So somatic healing is quite literally just healing through the body. And the way that it works is twofold. There is the nervous system piece, and there's also the fascia piece. So firstly, trauma is often misunderstood as something extreme or catastrophic, but trauma isn't the event itself. It's the body's response to the event, specifically the nervous system's response to an event. So that event can be something really small. Like it could be a kid making fun of your outfit in kindergarten. That can register as trauma in your system that we literally have to heal now as adults when we become aware of it. So one of the main jobs of the nervous system is to scan for threats through our senses. Our senses are essentially sensors, right? They're constantly taking in information. And when the nervous system registers something as threatening, automatically initiates a survival response. So we go into fight or flight or freeze or fawn. Fawn, by the way, is people pleasing. So that's not a personality trait. That's a survival response. It's not who you are if you're a people pleaser. So these reactions they're autonomic or automatic, right? We don't choose them. The nervous system also controls all of the automatic functioning of our bodies. So that's when a survival response happens, it's happening below our conscious choice. Now, this is where the fascia comes in. Fascia is the connective tissue that wraps around every single structure of the body, our organs, bones, muscles, ligaments, right? It provides protection and shock absorption and support. And this is where our unprocessed emotions and our memories are stored in our body. It's in the fascia. And our survival response to a situation interrupts that emotional expression that our body needs to have. So when an event happens and the nervous system goes into survival mode, the emotion associated with that event, so maybe it's fear or anger or grief or disgust, whatever it is, it doesn't get expressed in the moment. Instead, it gets stored in the fascia. So somatic healing works by reconnecting to those specific places in the body where the emotion is stored, and then allowing the nervous system to complete the process that was interrupted. And that release can happen in many different ways. It might look like gently pressing or massaging an area, moving or shaking that specific part of the body, or tapping on it, or stretching, or sounding using your voice. And that's why there's so many forms of somatic work. There's myofascial release, there's massage, there's yoga, there's dance, there's shaking, there's singing, there's screaming. There's so many different ways of accessing the body to release stored emotional energy. So when a release happens, it can show up as emotional expression. It can show up as crying or grunting or growling or yelling or laughter or tantruming, right? Or saying words that were never spoken that we need to
Mm-hmm.
say. And there can be shaking or trembling or deep sighs or yawning or spontaneous movements like rocking or curling or just like sudden urges to move your body or dance. And essentially what's happening is your body is finally doing what it needed to do in that original moment. It's expressing instead of surviving, right? It's like when kids have tantrums and we're like, no, no, stop, stop, stop. You're interrupting their nervous system completing the cycle.
Right.
If they're tantruming, their nervous system is actually releasing and doing what it needs to do. And so for us, we need to literally tantrum. Sometimes we just do it in a healthy, private way, you know? So there can also be physical purging, which is another way that the body discharges stored energy. So that can be sweating or burping or your nose running or diarrhea or peeing or vomiting, any kind of the way that the body releases what it no longer needs, right? Like any other form of elimination. So what it feels like varies widely. So some releases can feel totally exhilarating and freeing in the moment. Others can feel really intense and exhausting, or even like you need really deep rest afterward, almost like recovery after surgery. It can be as intense as that, and sometimes can last for like a couple months, depending on the intensity of whatever your nervous system registered that trauma as, are normal. Like it's a whole range. It's
Everybody
normal.
has their own way to heal.
Yeah. And the thing that's consistent is what comes after the integration. So once the body has fully processed and integrated the release, you feel lighter, you feel freer, you feel less burden, like you literally just like dropped like 100 pounds of weight on you. And your posture changes and it gets better, you know, your physical symptoms often improve. And there's just a sense of like more spaciousness inside
Mm-hmm.
your body because what was once held physically in your fascia and tightening your fascia and like pulling you down like this, if you're watching the video, you know, it's not there anymore. And so your own life force, your own essence, your soul literally gets to now occupy that space in your body.
Yeah, yeah. So there's this like misconception, I want to say, of like people who are energy healers or somatic practitioners or more in the holistic route that like all of a sudden they're just these like carefree. I wouldn't even use the word hippie because I don't even think that word even fits into that category anymore. And I think even crunchy is not the right word, but like there's this like weird misconception that like because of that, right? Because you're a somatic practitioner or you have done somatics or you're an energy healer or whatever, you're more in the holistic route. So you're not eating processed foods and you're not, you know, having so many toxins and you're focusing on detox that like you're just this like carefree, free spirit who like doesn't lose her cool on her kids or who doesn't have and like that's not it. Like at the end of the day you're still human. You might not have it as much, right? Because you've cleared up a lot like you said, but at the end of the day you still have five little kids.
Yep. So that's the thing is like people think there's like this. First of all, there are people who act that way who give us a bad rep. And those people are very much in their trauma. That's called dissociation. You've removed all the old stuff and you're present and you're more grounded. And the thing is that life keeps lifing. What's when the key in learning all of these different things and healing these different things is you learn how to work with your body and with your nervous system and with your triggers in real time. Like triggers don't stop. There's no such thing as having a calm nervous system. Your nervous system is its job is to detect for threats and to
Right.
respond accordingly. We're not trying to shut that off. We're trying to just get out of the stuck survival mode we've been in our whole lives so
Right.
that we can function more efficiently. Triggers change, sure. My kids certainly don't trigger me the way they used to. Now I get triggered, but I catch it right away and I can hold myself and do what I need to do to settle into my body and just like take a few minutes to regulate myself and not go all the way into the survival response
Right.
and and just bring myself into the present moment and what's actually happening and respond accordingly. And there's also
Right.
real life moments where, guess what? I am screaming at my kids because, there's five of them
Well,
respond
that's the thing. I
to
think that's what
everybody
you're
all at
saying.
once.
Like it's a response. It's not a reaction anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And there
Beforehand,
are
it was a
sometimes,
reaction.
sometimes there are reactions because it's just too much.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's five
you're
kids
human. That's
yelling
okay.
at me at the same time. It's very overstimulating. I can't be like, okay, it's all fine. I'm like, stop it, one at a time. Okay, go.
Right, right. But I'm saying, like, what you're saying is you kind of work that muscle within your nervous system
Yes.
and you train, like, let's say the fascia that's coming out to react in that moment and you're slowing it down. You're saying, 1 second. Okay, now I can answer you.
Right. I'm letting my nervous system know when it starts to like that I'm like, we're not under threat. There's not a tiger here. This is your kids just overstimulating you. Take a few deep breaths, just calm everyone down, and then you'll get to the actual needs after you've met your need, right? It's like putting on the airplane mask before you put on
Yes.
your kids. We have to do that or else we're going to spiral. We have to
Yeah.
get to our bodies when they're calling out to us, and we're allowed to do that. People think like it's not okay. Guess what? It takes literally 3 minutes, five
Yeah.
minutes, and they can wait for a few minutes.
And it's better for your kids if you
Yes.
do that when you're in the right, like you have to obviously be aware and have the right sound mind. And like you said, we're human. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way. But yeah, like taking those 2, 3 minutes to just
It's the best thing for them because you're teaching them that their emotions matter and their bodies matter and
right.
modeling that for them so they know how
Yeah.
to tend to their own bodies and emotions. And the way I see it affect my kids, the way I see them naturally doing that for themselves, I'm like, thank you, God, I'm doing something right. It's working.
But also, like you said, with the dissociation piece, like you can't be sitting there. I mean, you can teaching and like teaching people how to do, emotional regulation and the workshops that you were doing a while back. And then all of a sudden now being an energy healer and a somatic practitioner, and then not doing it yourself at home. Like exactly what you said, kids lead by, they learn through example.
Yeah.
So it is a testament to really embodying and living that way to be able to give that over to them. And I think that that's beautiful.
Yeah, and thank God that is the consistent feedback I have always gotten from clients and students and people who have attended my women's circles is they reflect to me that they can tell that what I'm teaching is embodied and that's why they trust me and they see me and they know where I was versus where I am now and
Yeah.
they can feel that from me that it's real that I've walked the walk and that they
And put
do
into
it.
purpose.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah, no, thank God. And to have that awareness is like not to dismiss any of the pain that you went through, but like the biggest bracha to be able to have that breaking point and take that and turn it into this.
Exactly. Yeah. Baruch Hashem.
How do you see somatics like in comparison to other modalities? Like I come from like the therapy lens of like talk therapy, but I've also come to the realization in within practicing that like there's only so much talk therapy can do. There's the concept of repeating the same trauma and accessing that
Mhm.
it actually doesn't release it from the body like what you're saying. I would say challenging for me to provide one-on-one therapy now because I see that there's a certain point of the loop that people can go through and wanting to be heard and validated. But like, I'm not going to be able to give that to you because you're not seeking validation from me. You're seeking validation from somebody else who hurt you and is not able to give that to you.
When it comes to talk therapy and mindfulness and meditation and all these things, right? They're all extremely different, but also very complementary to somatic work. They all work together beautifully. Like you really can't do one without the other for actual sustainable healing. Like meditation, for example, can actually be a mindful process and a somatic one. And I'll explain how that works, but mindfulness or talk therapy, it's a top-down approach, right? Because it
Right.
exists only in the mind. And it plays a crucial role because it's the space where meaning making and understanding happen. And it's where we cognitively process our experiences and make sense of what occurred, and we recognizing the patterns and arriving at like acceptance or insight, right? So this intellectual resolution matters because the nervous system needs coherence. And when something finally makes sense, the mind can stop looping or searching for answers. And somatic work then complements this by helping the body release what the mind has already understood. So that's also the thing, is the client themselves has to be willing to get to that place. They have to do the work of like releasing the victim mindset, which a lot of people don't understand that they're stuck in.
Yeah.
But like the looping can happen because, first of all, our bodies are physically get addicted to the hormones we release when we're expressing these different things. We're releasing all of the different stress hormones out of our adrenal glands, and our cells become addicted to it like a drug. So first of all, they have to become guided to become aware of what's happening in their body, and then be actual, like their goal has to be the resolution. And I don't want to hold this anymore. The mindfulness aspect has to help them know and accept their story, while somatics then will help the body complete and integrate the experience so that healing can happen both on the mental and physiological levels together. And then what's really cool is how like meditation can be both mindful and somatic together. Like what most people think of as mainstream meditation is usually like just a mindfulness based practice, observing the thoughts, focusing on the breath, cultivating awareness. And in my work, I facilitated somatic meditations, or hypnosis meditations, which you're not like being hypnotized and controlled. You're engaging the body and the nervous system directly, and you're being guided into your subconscious mind, which is deeply intertwined with the nervous system and the stored bodily patterns. So rather than staying in the observing mind, these meditations bring awareness into the body where emotions, memories, and protective responses live, and create the conditions for somatic release and integration. But I will also say that I think that like in general, therapists need to just be trauma informed, which really just means like learning the nervous system and how it works.
Yeah.
Because that can help clients like just get to what's happening in their body and the root of what these things are. You know, they may be like processing this thing that's happening in their life. Of course, there are difficult circumstances, but in general, there's a lot underneath that subconscious that's stored from a long time ago that is actually the root of what's happening. So it can help to the root of everything.
Like a common thing that happens in talk therapy is like you'll go home with homework, right? And that homework doesn't necessarily, it may heal a wounded part of you. Like, let's say if you have a hard time people pleasing, right? And so your homework is to say no one time this week. But it also doesn't address the guilt under the no and the body sensations or the tension that comes with leading up to the moment that you say no. And all of that. And so I think that what you're saying, that it has to work all together. It has to be blended together because the somatics can release that for you.
Right. It's not even just about like the thing that releases it is that the somatics will bring you with the proper guidance to what is the reason you can't say no to begin with? What happened in your life that you had to become a people pleaser to protect yourself?
Yes.
It's the root, because unless we get to the root, there's no real healing that's happening. It's band-aids, you know? So when we resolve that, that's when all of the patterns and the way that we currently behave as a result of all of that can start to unwind. And it's a slow process. Like there's no fast track to getting there because it's like tension and pain you've been holding for likely decades, you know?
Yeah, before you even knew you were carrying it.
Exactly. Like even the whole, like, I remember when I first was learning this stuff and about like fawn as a nervous system survival response, that people pleasing is not a personality trait. It's literally a survival response that your body registered. If I don't people please, I am not safe.
Yeah. And there's different kinds of people pleasers too.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. And they represent differently, and it all translates to what happened in childhood and why they took on this form of people pleasing versus this form of people pleasing.
Right. Yeah. There's so much to
There's
it.
so much. Do you ever feel that that because we're in such a generation that has access to such information, that the word trauma gets thrown around so much quicker than it needs to be?
So that's a very interesting question because it's been thrown around to the point that I think people are so sick of it. But it's also, it's not like other things where like people use the word wrong. Like, because the thing is that people generally think that trauma only means something
Something big.
catastrophic
No,
happened.
it's not something
But,
big.
right, but yeah, exactly. Like
It's
I said,
any time that you've had to betray yourself.
difficult emotions or patterns that you don't like that keep you small or that you go into overwhelm or whatever the patterns are that you're experiencing that disrupt your life or keep you from living just like a much freer, joyful version of yourself, then you want to address the trauma that's in your system. It does not have
Yeah.
to have been a catastrophic thing.
Yeah. And I want to go back to what you said earlier. You're never fully healed. We're a work in progress always. And I think that that comes with going back to another point that you said about victimhood and how people might not even be aware that they're giving themselves that label. And I think that that comes with certain seasons of life that you won't understand a certain something until you're in that position. And as long as I'm a child, not raising my own children, I'm not going to understand the choices that my parents made. Once I'm older and I can understand that they had lack of knowledge, lack of access to information, they were going through their own stuff. They were doing the best with what they could when they had. I release that.
So, very good point. And it's not the whole thing because we can get to that compassion, but the compassion doesn't come until after we have expressed the wrongs done to us, regardless of their inability to give us secure attachment.
You're
Meaning,
saying expressing it to them or just expressing it out
no,
loud for
not
yourself? Yeah,
express.
I was going to say that doesn't sound good.
No, no,
That
no.
sounds like it's a recipe for disaster.
We don't heal by confronting the person. It's
Yeah.
about what's being held in our body. That's what inner child healing is. Your inner child didn't get something, say, from your parents that a need that they had of just, say, like nurturance or protection, like basic human needs for a
Yes.
child. And you don't get it by then going and saying, you didn't give me this, give it to me now. They're never going to be able to give it to you, by the way. Even if they heal and they do amazing, they can't
Yeah.
fix the imprint for you. You do it. That's what inner child healing is you become the mother to your inner child and you say, I see you. What do you need? I'm going to give you that need now. So this is something that happens like all the time in inner child healing sessions where the clients where they get to the inner child and they're having this conversation with their inner child and they're saying, they're giving them all the reasons, right, that their parents couldn't meet the need and they're giving them the compassion. And this is why for some people who try inner child healing doesn't work because you're still ignoring the child's needs. You're not validating their emotion.
Right. You're
All that
justifying the action.
matters,
Right.
you were
Is the
abandoned or
validation.
you were ignored, and I see you. And what do you need? Let me give you what you need. Only once you repair in that way, later can you intellectually come to that compassion and then be able to like deal with your parents in a normal way. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
In a regulated
Right.
way, not normal.
Yeah, 100%. Until you're in that position, though, I don't think that it's amplified for you yet.
Yeah.
Once you become a mother and then you're in this weird position of like, I'm still a daughter
Yeah.
and I'm a mother. Like sometimes I feel like I'm babysitting my kids. Like somebody hired me to like babysit them. And I'm like, who trusted me with you guys?
Yeah, totally.
Who left me with you guys? But I think that only once you're in that position
Hmm.
can you really maybe understand, justify to the inner child, but kind of like going back to what you said of like, there has to be the compassion piece and you have to heal that part also. Like the inner child in you doesn't need the justifications, but
Hmm.
the adult in you needs the compassion in order to
Right.
develop a relationship as an adult with your parent,
Yeah, for sure.
if that's what you want.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I will just say yeah, definitely. And from my own experience, I wasn't able to get to the compassion until going through that whole process with my inner child. And so in that process that's the time when you're creating the boundaries with them, because they're going to trigger you. It's not going to get better until you've processed these things. Once that inner child part, because what happens is like when we've experienced these things as children, our inner child, they get frozen in time. That's why we feel like children raising children. And we're like, I'm still a teenager. How do I have 5 children? Like, what? And I truly didn't feel like a grown-up until like a year ago. I'm not kidding. Until I had 5 kids, until I completed all this like inner child healing and all the different ages, because I unfroze all those stuck, frozen younger parts of me that were frozen in time. And so then I got to come into my own actual age, because all these different younger ages weren't part of me anymore.
Yeah.
They were healed,
Yeah.
solved, they got their needs met by me, not by parents.
And I think that's also going back to the word that you said, boundaries, such a heavy word. People get so scared of boundaries also. And
It's
that's something that
scary.
I teach. It's scary to set boundaries, going back to the people pleasing, the fawn, but it's really not as big as people think it is. It's a simple thing of like not answering a phone call when you don't have the headspace for it.
Mhm.
That could be a boundary.
Yeah. I think the reason it gets so scary too is it's because our inner child inside is freaking out, because they're from their experience, if I set this boundary, I'm in danger.
Yes.
So when we
And
set
that danger presents differently based on the childhood and the trauma. But yeah,
exactly, so we have to just before, during, after connect with our inner child and let them know, I'm an adult now. This is safe. I'm protecting you. You're safe. I'm in control of this. I'm the grown up. I got this. And let them know that they're safe, because if you're like freaking out inside, like this has happened to me having to set boundaries. My body's literally trembling and I feel a migraine like starting to bubble up. And it's just that. It's because if my inner child tried to stand up for herself in that way, she would not be safe. So it's the whole time you're just letting her know that update her as to what's true now. You're not, whatever age you were anymore. You're not a
yeah.
child in your parents' house. This is safe. And that's how we downregulate our system through that process. And then we just have to stick to the boundaries
But
and
I think
knowing that
also
will be pushback.
there will be pushback 100%. And then eventually there won't be. And
Yeah.
when there isn't, that satisfaction that you feel, and like going back to saying, like talking to that inner child and saying, like, you see, I got you. Like I told you we're going to be good. I told you we're going to be okay. That in and of itself is also healing without even realizing that you're healing parts of you by
Yeah.
setting boundaries.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's like you are becoming the adult that your inner child needed to defend her back then. You're becoming her protector.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing and it's hard, but it's also beautiful. Can you share a concrete example? Well, kind of, you did from your own life or a client, unless you want to talk about something specific.
I do, if that's okay. Because there's two examples that come to mind that are really powerful that like just can just like paint a much like
Clearer picture of somatics.
yeah, clearer picture. One that's more of like an extreme example, and then one that's more just relatable in
Okay.
terms of healing trauma. I did an in-person somatic energy session for a client one time who has advanced Parkinson's. And these sessions, they combine like gentle hands-on work, energy healing, and guided emotional processing with the client fully present. And she's like communicating with me throughout. So in this session, this was her first time ever doing somatic or emotional based healing work. And so, as she began expressing an emotional theme that came up, her body started shaking more intensely than usual. Like she's advanced Parkinson's, so she shakes all the time.
Right.
But it started shaking more and she started to get scared and she like, should we stop? She started getting worried, like her symptoms were getting worse. And I reassured her that she's totally safe. And I was just like explaining from the somatic perspective what's happening. Shaking is the nervous system's way of releasing stored stress and trauma. So, especially when awareness is brought to it, right?
Right.
So what was happening, it wasn't escalation. It was like the activation paired with the fear and resistance. So I was guiding her to just slowly stay present with the sensations, allow the movement without fighting it, and properly express what was coming up emotionally. And she did such a beautiful job. She surrendered. She let her body complete its process. And when the process completed, her body went completely still. like stopped
Wow.
trembling completely, something she hadn't experienced in years. It was gorgeous and like astounding to witness. Such a profound moment that really just shows how when the body is supported rather than resisted, it can complete processes that have been stuck for a long time. So she wasn't healed completely. She obviously, she started like, trembling again later, like her regular, but maybe even less. I don't know. But that's the thing is like when we heal just like piece by piece and process
Yeah.
like each thing that's there, the symptoms improve. And in that moment, when she released one thing, her body stopped shaking. So like, Baruch
That's
Hashem,
amazing.
it was beyond. And so the second example, this one's personal and likely more relatable, especially for moms. I gave birth to my fifth baby almost 8 months ago, and it was a traumatic birth. He experienced shoulder dystocia. He was stuck for a long time. And when he was born, he needed to be resuscitated. And for just, thank God, only 2 minutes. But in those 2 minutes, I watched him from across the room, separated from him, not knowing if he would live. And thank God he recovered fully. But obviously, in those moments, my nervous system went into shock and numbness and dissociation, which is a normal protective survival response during overwhelming trauma. I knew I was terrified, but I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel the fear. I certainly couldn't express the terror that was there. It was numb inside my body, right? This is the brilliant design of our nervous systems. Um, so I start thinking to myself in that moment, I was like, okay, I need to do something. I need to pray. And just the only words that I were able to muster was, Hashem, just please let him be okay. Please let him be okay. I just repeated it over and over till he was fine. Thank God. Did a lot of mental processing after that, but being postpartum, I haven't had the space or safety to like go back and complete the nervous system process that needed to happen. So a few weeks ago, I got a migraine. And for me, when I get migraines, it's a signal that I have unprocessed emotional material that's ready to move. So I sat with my body using somatic tools, realized what needed attention was that birth experience, and more specifically, the need to be held and mothered through it. Um, in that moment, I needed a mother figure, like to hold me. And I realized I felt that lack in my body when I was like visiting what this migraine was, right? Because after he was born, I automatically went into my own patterns, still in survival mode of reassuring everyone
Hmm.
everything's okay. It was a miracle, thank God. Very much still in survival mode. And so, anyways, so I had this migraine, and my dear friend Shulamis Knapp, she's an extremely gifted energy healer. She came over, she guided me through a somatic session, and with her safe presence, I was able to revisit that moment of the birth in a supported way, and my body naturally returned to that position I had been in during labor. I was on my hands and knees, and I was able to fully express the terror and the grief and the desperation that had been frozen in my system these last 7 months. And I got to scream and cry and shake and beg God for his life, and from like the depths of my heart and my soul. And then when it was done, my body was trembling uncontrollably, which was all that terror discharging from my body. Afterward, my migraine resolved. Later that night, I had some physical purging, which also can happen after a full nervous system release. And now it's like complete, and like even before, anytime I would talk about the birth, it was like my whole chest and throat was like I'm being like choked.
Yeah.
Like and now it's not so difficult because I released that built up sympathetic energy from my nervous system. All of that fight, flight, fear, everything was finally expressed properly. So those are some examples of the ways we
Yeah.
just releasing stored trauma, the stored energy of the emotions can fully resolve something.
No, that's beautiful. And it's amazing that like you not only like did somebody come and help you who's trained in it, but you're the one who trained her. She was your student. And that's amazing that she was able to now hold that container for you and give that to you.
Thank God. And I can't even say I trained her. She's like she's so intuitive and she's so gifted. And it's like the modeling, like that's the power of embodiment, you know? She wasn't like a student that like I trained her in any kind of method. Like she came to classes, she came of just like of her own healing, just healing her own stuff. And so the more that she released and healed her own things, she cleared her channel for Hashem to work
Wow.
because that's who we are and that's how our bodies are literally designed to function.
Yeah.
So it's thank God. That's literally what happens, you know, when we heal is our channel becomes clear and we can connect to Hashem and feel him flow through us.
No, and it's beautiful to be able to do that. I think that's becoming more normalized these days of like not just davening like out of a sitter reading Tehillim. It's really, going on a walk and just seeing people like mumbling to themselves and like sometimes they're like, "What are you doing?" You're like, "I'm talking to Hashem," and it's just
Yeah.
become a normal thing. I want to segue also to your Kabbalah Moon Journal. I saw that you recently put that out. Kind of just give a little understanding of like what led you there, what's it all about. I think it's available on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so early on in my healing journey, I was introduced to the Kabbalistic teachings of the Hebrew month, and it completely changed the way I understood growth and healing. So in Kabbalah, time is not random, right? Each month on the Hebrew calendar carries a very specific energetic quality, almost like a spiritual climate we're living inside of.
Mm-hmm.
And every month has its own theme, its own invitation for refinement, and it's deeply connected to what's happening in nature in that time of year. And so, you know, whether we're at like the beginning of a season, the peak, or the release phase, our inner world mirrors that rhythm. And each month is associated with a body part, a sense, a Hebrew letter, an element, a Torah portion, a zodiac sign, even a specific expression of divine energy, the
Mm-hmm.
permutation of Hashem's name. And when you look at all of those layers together, it tells a very clear story and it creates a very clear map of what is available to us right now, what wants healing, what wants strengthening, how to work with it in a way that's aligned and not forceful. For years, I facilitated women's circles around the energy of the Hebrew month. And we would gather, we would drink cacao, we would drop into the body, and I would teach the energetic themes of the month. And then I'd guide a deep somatic or hypnotic meditation. The women weren't just understanding the teachings intellectually, they were embodying them and like experiencing the healing that we were taught from the wisdom of the month. So what was so incredible to witness was the long-term transformation. Women who came month after month, like they didn't just have these like one-off breakthroughs, which also would happen, which was so cool, but you could see their nervous systems change and their relationship shifting and their capacities growing. And there was this like cumulative evolution that happened when they lived in rhythm with the months instead of fighting themselves or trying to just like fix everything at once. So the Kabbalah Moon Journal was born from a very personal desire that I wanted something that I could open every single day and immediately know what am I meant to be working with right now? What's being asked of me in this moment, in this week, in this season of my life? And I wanted a way to live this wisdom, not just think about it once a month, right? And I wanted to make that accessible for everybody, no matter where you are in the world, to just be able to live with more presence and intention. So the journal is really this invitation to a deeply conscious way of living. And it's designed to work with you daily, weekly, and monthly, and in alignment with our lunar cycle. Each week corresponds to a different phase of the moon, right? So you're actively working with the energy that's present. You're letting go during the waning phases. You're clarifying and aligning during the new moon, and you're expanding and embodying during the full moon, right? So over time, this creates a way of life where you're consistently checking in. You're releasing what no longer serves you, and you're consciously aligning yourself with what you're calling in. So, right, because healing happens in layers and in rhythm and with a lot more trust and timing. So I created it because it's what I genuinely want to use myself. And I've seen how powerful life becomes when we stop living on autopilot and start moving through our days with awareness and intention and alignment and with the natural cycles we're already living inside of. And so coming up in Adar, I'm going to be launching the spring edition because I do it season by season. And you know, as I've been using the winter one, I was able to notice all the different ways that I want to improve it. So the next launch for the months of Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan will be an expanded edition with a lot more goodies than the current.
Amazing. That's beautiful. And it's also going to be available on Amazon.
Yes, all on Amazon.
Amazing. What would you say to a listener who feels disconnected from their body, out of rhythm, not really in sync? What's one small, gentle practice that they can start to integrate to kind of tune into themselves a little bit more?
So I would start incredibly small, like really small. And one gentle practice is to simply just pause once a day and just put your own hands on your body, your chest, your belly, your heart. I recommend the heart and the womb. As a woman, those are like the two spots that like need us. And just take a breath into your body and ask your body, what am I feeling right now? Not what you're thinking. If you start going into your mind, become aware of that and get out of the mind and ask your body. You're addressing your heart and your womb, not your brain. What am I feeling right now? And just what you actually notice in your body, right? And then don't try to change it. If you notice tightness, acknowledge it. If you notice heaviness, if you notice nothing at all, that's information too, right? The practice is presence, and it's not performance. And so when you begin to become aware of feelings inside, if there's a story attached, right? Such as I'm angry because this person did that, right? I invite you to drop the story and stick only with the sensations. This is what somatic work is. We drop the story and we stick with just the body sensations. What are the emotions I'm feeling? What are the physical sensations in my body? Just acknowledging their presence and be a witness to them without any judgment. And then if it feels accessible, add one slow exhale. Not a big breathing exercise, just a longer out breath. You want to make your exhales twice as long as your inhales because that alone tells the nervous system it's safe to soften. Then if you want to take it a step further, you can make some sounds on your exhale. So maybe you want to sigh or hum, both of which activate the vagus nerve and help to downregulate us out of fight or flight. Or maybe you even want to make the sound of the emotion you noticed you're feeling on the exhale without judgment, which is very important, right? Even if
Right.
that sound surprises you, maybe it's a grunt or a growl or something totally weird and unexpected. Just let your body express the emotions that are present with these sounds on your exhales. No one's around to judge you, so don't judge yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And this may seem almost too simple to some people, but it's actually really profound because disconnection just it comes from overriding ourselves over and over.
Yeah.
So reconnection happens when the body realizes it's actually being listened to. And that's
Yeah.
how the rhythm starts to come back, not through force, but through this relationship with our body.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think also the simplest things are the ones that we procrastinate the most because on some level we know that that's how we're going to get reconnected to ourselves.
Totally. And people are always, when, you know, I have my membership and I have all the different somatic exercises and things in there, and people are always shocked at how fast and easy these things can be. That like there are
Yeah.
some exercises just for in the moment you need regulation that literally take between 1 and 3 minutes to do, and how well they work. And I hear feedback of people only did a few exercises here and there, and they're sleeping better and they're breathing better and their digestion has improved, and like they're having like crazy improvements
Yeah.
from just like these simple 3-minute exercises here and there of just releasing that stored up tension from your body.
Yeah. You're not currently practicing though right now, are you?
No, but that's why I created my membership, that it's like you can learn everything pretty much that I teach and would do one-on-one in this membership. I also really highly recommend it for therapists because it gives you'll learn all of the trauma-informed nervous system stuff that you can add to your own practice that just helps you support clients so much better. And I do have like a discount code for therapists to give their clients because I'm like it works so well together. Like if you're using the membership, then it's also great to have a therapist that you're able to integrate whatever comes up for you. And I also have a discount code for anyone here listening. If you put in the code podcast, all in caps, you get 25% off. And then it's only
Beautiful.
$33 a month. I'm just so
That's good.
passionate about making this stuff super accessible. Like I'm not able
Yeah.
work right now. I'm totally just devoted to my family and my baby and like integrating my new life as a mom of five and like figuring out my rhythm here.
Yeah.
But I'm like, the people still need this stuff, you know? So I'm just so
Yeah. And
happy to
it's beautiful that you're making it accessible to people. So your membership, is it $33 a month and it's a certain amount of videos, or how, kind of talk about that for a second?
So yeah, it's full price is $44 a month, but with the discount code it's 33. So I have 3 workshops and it teaches you all about your own nervous system with all the active practices to create a map to your own nervous system, how you react to things, what survival patterns you go into, how to catch them, how to regulate yourself, how to start healing your own patterns and reactions to things. It's really for like I learned this stuff and applied it to my life before teaching it, obviously. This was the number one thing that made everything else work. It's called somatic healing foundations because it's literally the foundations. And then we also have a library of somatic practices and meditations. So you have those like quick few minute practices that you can do to just release, build up tension. There's meditations that you can, so many powerful healing meditations in there, including like inner child healing, cord cutting. So like if you're attached to something like, to old patterns and whatever, just energetically kind of cleansing that, setting your energy for the day and before you go to bed. It's really, really amazing. And we have the somatic reset, which is a 30-day challenge. It's of 10-minute somatic practices that take you through breath work, affirmations, and it teaches you all about somatic work, about bringing your body into like just out of survival mode by actively doing the practices. And they're so easy and they're relaxing and they feel great. And thank God, it's amazing. So all of that is accessible in the
That's
membership.
beautiful.
And there will be more
Wow.
added as I continue adding stuff. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tamar. I really enjoyed like every part of this conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. For anybody listening also, please go check out Tamar's page, Manifest Health Official, and also check out her podcast, which is the Manifest Health Podcast. Are you airing what's your schedule?
Right now, I'm doing it once a month.
Once a month. Okay. And is it kind of like what we did today, kind of talking about your journey in somatics and that kind of stuff? Or is it?
So, I'm starting off right now. I just launched it. I have 1 episode out so far. I'm starting off with a series of what I consider to be the keys of healing. So, like the first episode is all about developing a relationship with God and
Okay.
just a bunch of different concepts within that. So I'm kind of going through that, and it will also just be, it's not about me. I'll say that. It's certainly not about me. I bring in certain, personal experiences to help paint pictures of things, but it's more just about ways that you can apply all of these different incredible concepts that I have learned and experienced over the years. And I'm also going to eventually bring in interviews with other people that they shared their stories of their journeys and expertise. For me, the thing that made me know in the beginning of my healing journey that I could do all of this stuff was hearing the other lived stories of people that they did
Yeah.
it. So that and it's so inspiring when you can take so many nuggets from so many different things.
Yeah.
So
No, that's beautiful. And it's
very
so,
much.
okay. Well, okay. Let's look out for your podcast once a month drop. And I'm really like, I'm still processing everything that we spoke about, but it was amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was so fun to talk to you. And
Yeah. It's been a
and
while.
yeah, we should do this more often.
Thank you, Tamar. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.